The monster in the rain. The rain was heavy that night. It hit the metal roof like a drumbeat. The human, named Ethan, sat inside his small outpost at the edge of the forest, far from the main colony. He was alone. He liked it that way. But then, bang! Something slammed into the metal door. Ethan stood quickly, hand on his pulse pistol. He moved toward the door, careful, quiet. Another bang came, louder this time. Then a strange voice, weak and shaking. "Please, don't shoot. I'm cold." The voice was strange. Not human, not machine. Ethan opened the door just a little and looked out. There she stood, tall, thin, and shaking from head to toe. Her body was covered in torn clothes and scars. Her skin had a pale glow under the storm. Her eyes were large and sad. One horn on her head was cracked. The other had been cut off. She looked like a monster, a broken one. Ethan aimed his gun. "Who are you?" The alien lifted her hands slowly. "I won't hurt you." Then she collapsed on the metal floor. Ethan stared for a second, unsure. Then instinct took over. He pulled her inside and shut the door. Water dripped from her long hair. Her breathing was fast, panicked. She was freezing. He dropped his gun and rushed to grab a blanket. "Here," he said, covering her. She looked up at him with wide, glowing eyes. Why didn't you scream?" He frowned. "Scream?" My face. My body. Humans always scream. Ethan looked at her face. It was marked with burns. Her jaw had strange plates. But there was something soft in her eyes. She looked more hurt than scary. "I've seen worse," Ethan said. She blinked. "Can you sit up?" he asked. She tried and winced. I haven't eaten in days." Ethan moved to the small kitchen unit. He heated up some soup. It wasn't much, but it was hot. He handed her the bowl. She stared at it, confused. "You're giving this to me?" "Yes. That's what you do when someone's cold and hungry." She took it with shaky hands. For a few minutes, she said nothing. She only ate. Slowly, carefully, like someone afraid it might be taken away. "What's your name?" Ethan asked. The alien hesitated. "I was called many names, most of them cruel. You can call me Vetra." Ethan nodded. "All right, Vetra. I'm Ethan." She looked at him again. "Ethan, you are not like the others." He didn't reply. He wasn't sure what she meant. After eating, Vetra tried to sit up straight, but her body was weak. She looked around the room. There was only one bed, small but clean. She moved toward a corner and lay on the cold floor. Ethan frowned. "What are you doing?" "I will sleep here." "No, you're hurt. You take the bed." She shook her head, quickly. "No, I'm dirty. I might scare you in the night." Ethan sighed. "I've seen worse than a scared, tired alien. Get in the bed." Vetra didn't move. "I'm not asking," Ethan said firmly. She stood slowly, unsure. Her legs wobbled. She walked to the bed like someone walking toward danger. Then she sat, on the edge, still afraid to lie down. "Thank you," she whispered. "But why are you not afraid of me?" Ethan looked at her and said, "Because you knocked on the door. Because you begged me not to shoot. Because monsters don't do that." Her lips trembled. "They said no human would ever help me. They said you would scream or shoot or run." Ethan leaned back in his chair. Then they were wrong. A long silence filled the room. The storm still raged outside, but inside, there was warmth. Now Vetra slowly laid down on the bed, still watching Ethan with wide eyes. Her body relaxed a little. She didn't sleep yet, but she didn't look ready to run anymore either. That night, as the thunder rolled, Ethan sat quietly and watched her drift into sleep. Her face looked peaceful now. Her hands had stopped shaking, but his mind was full of questions. Who was she? Running from? What had humans done to her? And why, despite her fear, had she come to his door? He didn't know yet. But one thing was clear. She wasn't just some monster in the rain. She was someone broken, hunted, and human or not, she needed help. And he had just let her in. The next morning, Vetra woke slowly. Her body ached, but it wasn't from the cold. For the first time in a long time, she had slept on something soft. The small human bed had felt strange beneath her damaged skin, but it was warm. Safe. She turned her head and saw Ethan in the chair, asleep with a half-empty mug still in his hand. She stared at him quietly. Why hadn't he tied her up during the night? Why hadn't he locked the door or pointed his weapon at her again? She had seen many humans before, cold ones, cruel ones. The ones in the lab wore white coats and gloves and smiled while hurting her. They said she was ugly, useless, broken. But Ethan hadn't even flinched at her face. Slowly, she sat up, pulling the blanket closer. Her body bore the reminders of her past. Scars like deep rivers ran down her arms. One side of her neck had burn marks. Her fingers were missing small joints cut off for study, the scientist had said. When Ethan opened his eyes, he saw her watching him. He didn't panic. He gave a small nod. Sleep okay? She hesitated. I think so. Good, he said, stretching his arms and standing up. You need food again? She nodded slowly. He turned to make more soup. No questions, no threats. Just calm, steady movements. Like she wasn't terrifying. Like she wasn't a mistake created by someone else's cruelty. While the soup heated, she looked around the small outpost. There were no photos, no decorations, just tools, gear, and one faded jacket hanging by the door. Ethan didn't seem like someone who needed much. You live here alone? She asked. Yeah, he said, stirring. Too many people back in the colony. I prefer silence. Vetra lowered her head. Silence is easier. Ethan looked at her, hearing the weight in her voice. He placed the soup in her hands gently. I saw the scars, he said quietly. You don't have to tell me everything. But I'd like to know who did that to you. She stared into the bowl. Humans. He didn't answer. She continued. They took me from my world, said I was rare, special. I thought that meant good. But it didn't. They locked me in a room full of light. They poked me, burned me, cut me open, then smiled and said it was for knowledge. Ethan clenched his jaw but didn't speak. I escaped during a fire. One of their own labs exploded. I ran into the wild and never looked back. He sat across from her. You've been running ever since? She nodded. I thought humans were monsters. All of them. Until I knocked on your door. Ethan stayed silent for a while. Then he said, not all humans are the same. But, yeah, some are monsters too. She studied him. You're not one of them? He met her eyes. No. And I'm sorry for the ones who were. She swallowed hard. If they find me again, they'll take me back. They won't, Ethan said without hesitation. You say that, but you don't know who they are. I don't care who they are, he said. You're not going back. Vetra looked down. Her hands gripped the bowl tightly. They said, I was ugly, that my body was wrong, that no one would ever look at me without fear. Ethan leaned back in his chair. They were wrong. She looked up at him sharply. You're lying. I don't lie, he said simply. You were hurt. You're still healing. But your eyes, they're not ugly, they're strong. Anyone who can survive what you did isn't ugly. They're brave. Her lips trembled. She looked away. I don't understand, she whispered. You treat me like I'm normal. You knocked. You spoke. You didn't attack. That's more than most people do. You're not a monster, Vetra. She didn't know what to say. The words filled the room like warmth from a fire. She had heard insults her whole life. But now, a human was calling her brave. She finished the soup slowly, then placed the bowl down. Ethan, she said softly. Yes? If I stay here, will you let me? He looked at her for a long second. As long as you want. She closed her eyes, and for the first time, no fear followed her silence. There was no yelling, no pain, no tests, just quiet breathing and the low hum of the heater. Outside, the sky cleared. But inside, something far more important had started to heal. That night, the outpost was quiet again. The storm had passed, but the wind still howled across the cold plains. Ethan slept in the chair once more, arms crossed, eyes closed. Across the room, Vetra lay curled up in the bed, the blanket wrapped tight around her. But sleep didn't come easy for her. The shadows on the walls twisted like old memories. The silence reminded her of the lab before the screaming started. Her chest felt tight. Her mind kept replaying the past. Needles, fire, voices in white coats laughing. She clenched her teeth. Suddenly, the sound of glass shattering echoed in her mind. She sat up fast, eyes wide, breathing heavy. She looked around. No lab, no chains, just a quiet outpost and a human sleeping in a chair. But the fear didn't stop. She pressed her hands against her ears, shaking. Then she spoke in a strange, sharp alien language, fast and full of panic. Her words spilled like water, fast and broken. Ethan's eyes opened. He stood up quickly and rushed to her side. Vetra? She didn't look at him. Her body shook. Her hand scratched at her own arms like she was trying to tear something off. Ethan crouched beside the bed. Hey, Vetra, stop, you're safe, it's over. But she didn't hear him. He gently grabbed her wrists and held them. Vetra, look at me. She blinked and slowly turned her glowing eyes toward him. Her breathing was wild, her face full of terror. She wasn't here, not fully. She was still there in the lab. I'm not them, Ethan said softly. It's just me. Just Ethan. You're safe. She stared at him. Her eyes searched his face for a lie. But she didn't find one. I thought I was back there, she whispered. You're not. You're here with me. No one can hurt you now. Her hands were still trembling. I heard their voices again. They told me I was only useful broken. Ethan let go of her wrists but stayed close. They lied to you. They cut me open while I was awake, she said, her voice thin and flat. They said I didn't deserve to sleep like the others. Ethan didn't know what to say. What kind of monsters had done that to her? Every night I close my eyes, she said, and I'm back there. Then don't sleep alone tonight, Ethan said. She looked at him, confused. He sat on the edge of the bed. Move over, I'll sit with you. She hesitated, eyes unsure. You want to share a bed with me? I thought I disgusted you. He smiled gently. You don't. I told you, you're not scary. Slowly, she moved to the side, leaving space. Ethan sat beside her. The bed was small. Their shoulders touched slightly. You don't have to stay, she whispered. I'm not leaving, he replied. For a while, there was silence. The heater hummed. The wind outside had finally died. Then she asked, Why are you being so kind to me? He looked at her. Because someone should have done it a long time ago. She turned her face away, but not before he saw a tear slide down her cheek. She wiped it quickly. I'm not used to this, she said. When I was young, I believed in kindness. My people believed in it too. But then the ships came and everything changed. I'm sorry, Ethan said. Truly. Vetra nodded slowly. They said the pain would make me useful. That fear would make me obedient, but it only made me hate everything. Ethan rested back against the headboard. Then hate them, not yourself. Her eyes widened a little. You understand? I've seen soldiers come back broken, blamed for surviving. But survival isn't weakness, Vetra. It's strength. Her hand reached for the blanket and gripped it tight. Do you think I can be whole again? I think you already are, he said. She didn't speak. She laid down beside him carefully, as if unsure if the moment was real. He didn't move away. For the first time in years, Vetra felt something strange. Not fear, not pain, just warmth, just peace. She stared at the ceiling and whispered, "Thank you." "You're welcome," Ethan replied. As the night grew deeper, she finally closed her eyes. This time, no screaming followed. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the cracked shutters of the outpost. Vetra opened her eyes slowly. Her first instinct was to run, to hide, to protect herself. But then she felt the warmth beside her. She turned her head and saw Ethan still asleep, breathing gently, one arm lying near hers but not touching. He had kept his word. He had stayed. She stared at him for a while, unsure how to feel. She had spent years hiding her body, her pain, her fear. And now she had slept beside a human, something she once thought impossible. Her fingers moved to the scar on her cheek. It was still there, of course. Her body was still a map of torment. But Ethan hadn't looked away from her, not even once. Quietly, she slipped out of the bed. Her feet touched the cold metal floor, but it didn't bother her. Not after what she'd endured. She looked around the room. Ethan's coat still on, the hook, a few scattered tools, his half-fixed drone sitting on the table. Everything here was worn and quiet, like him. Vetra walked over to a small mirror near the storage shelf. She looked at herself. Her face was rough. One eye had a faint glow from the lab implants. Her skin was uneven, her shoulder twisted from a bone that never healed right. Her claws were cracked, one missing. She sighed. Then she heard movement. Ethan sat up on the bed, rubbing his eyes. "Did you sleep okay?" She looked away from the mirror. "I didn't scream." He smiled gently. "That's progress," she nodded. "Thank you for not leaving." "I meant it," he said. For a moment, silence filled the room again. Then she asked, "Why didn't you sleep in the bed?" "I didn't want you to feel trapped." She tilted her head. "But you sat next to me all night." "I wanted to be close enough if you needed someone." Vetra walked back toward him, moving slowly. She stopped at the edge of the bed and looked down at him. "Do you think I'll ever look normal?" Ethan looked up at her. "Normal doesn't exist, but you already look like someone I trust." Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't know what to say. Ethan stood up. "I have some gear to check outside." The scanner picked up. A strange signal near the West Ridge last night. Could be a storm echo, could be something else. Vetra's eyes narrowed. "Do you think they've found me?" "I don't know. But I'll check. Stay here and keep the door locked." She hesitated. "I want to come." He shook his head. "You're still weak." "I'm not helpless," she replied, her voice sharper now. He paused, then nodded. "All right, but stay close." They both stepped out into the chilly morning air. The grass was wet and the sky was clear. Birds flew in the distance, local creatures, harmless and fast. As they walked toward the ridge, Vetra felt her body tense. Every step outside the outpost made her feel exposed. She was used to being hunted, she had always run, but now someone was walking beside her. When they reached the hill, Ethan knelt and checked his scanner. The signal had stopped. "No movement," he said. "Whatever it was, it's gone now." But Vetra wasn't looking at the scanner. Her eyes were on the forest. "Someone was watching," she whispered. Ethan stood up quickly. "How do you know?" "I know the feeling. Like breath on the back of my neck. It's what kept me alive." Ethan raised his weapon and scanned the trees, but nothing moved. Still, his gut told him she was right. They returned to the outpost. In silence. Back inside, Ethan locked the door behind them. Vetra paced near the wall, nervous. "They're close," she said. "I can feel it." "Then we need to prepare." She nodded. "But before that," he turned to her. "What is it?" She took a deep breath and slowly walked toward the bed. She placed her hand on it. Last night, it didn't scare me. Not because the bed changed, but because you were there. Ethan listened, silent. She sat down and looked at him. Would you lie here again? Not to protect me, just to be close? Ethan didn't answer right away. Then he walked over and sat beside her. Of course. She laid her head on his shoulder. I used to fear this bed. Now it feels like the safest place I've ever known. And for the first time since she had escaped the lab, her heart beat quietly. Not from fear, but from peace. The peaceful feeling didn't last long. That night, as the stars blinked over the quiet sky, Ethan worked on the power cells while Vetra tried to organize supplies. She still moved slowly, her body aching from old wounds. But there was a calmness in her now. It came from knowing she wasn't alone anymore. But as the sun dipped below the hills, something shifted in the air. Ethan was the first to notice it. His comm unit, quiet for days, let out a strange static buzz. He tapped it. Then came a message. A voice. Cold, flat, mechanical. Subject located. Prepare for retrieval. Ethan froze. He didn't know who had sent it, but Vetra's reaction told him everything. She dropped the container in her hands. Her eyes widened. Her breathing grew sharp. No. No, not again, she whispered, stepping back. Who is it? Ethan asked quickly. She didn't answer. Her body began to shake. They found me, she said in a hollow voice. They always find me. Ethan grabbed his rifle and locked the door. Then they'll have to go through me. But she stepped forward, panic rising. You don't understand, Ethan. They don't care who you are. They'll burn this place down just to catch me. Then we don't let them, he said, loading the weapon. I'm not leaving you. Vetra's voice cracked. You should, before they kill you too. Ethan walked up to her and looked her in the eyes. I didn't let you die in the storm. I didn't run when I saw your scars, and I won't run now. She swallowed hard. Her throat felt tight. He gently placed a hand on her shoulder. We fight. Together. She nodded slowly. Then I'll show you something. She walked to her bag, the one she'd carried since the lab. From inside, she pulled out a small device. It looked broken, dusty, cracked down the middle. This, she said, was the only thing I stole from them. It holds data about what they did, about the others like me. I was supposed to destroy it, but I couldn't. Ethan stared at it. This is why they're hunting you? She nodded. They don't just want me dead, they want this erased. I'm not just a survivor to them. I'm a threat. Ethan took the device carefully. We'll protect it. Just then, a deep rumble shook the walls. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lights flickered. Vetra's eyes went cold. Their dropship. Ethan moved fast. He pushed a table in front of the door, sealed the windows with metal panels, and handed Vetra a backup pistol. You know how to use it? He asked. She checked the charge with steady fingers. I remember. Another explosion sounded outside. Closer now. Then came footsteps. Heavy boots on soil. Ethan moved to the door. Weapon. Ready. How many? She focused her hearing. 6. Maybe 7. One of them is a hunter. Enhanced. Like I was supposed to be. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Supposed to be? They used me to test weapons. Pain thresholds. Healing drugs. But I didn't break the way they wanted, so they discarded me. The footsteps grew louder, then boom! The main door blasted inward. Smoke filled the outpost. Ethan fired. One soldier fell. The others returned fire. Lasers cutting through walls. Vetra ducked behind a shelf, returning fire with perfect aim. Her hands remembered the training forced into her body. Her eyes focused with deadly precision. They won't stop, she shouted. They'll have to. Ethan yelled back, tossing a flash grenade. The room lit up. Screams, then silence. Bodies dropped. Smoke cleared. Only 2 figures remained standing. Ethan and Vetra. Blood dripped from Ethan's arm, but he was alive. Vetra panted, her chest rising fast. Her hands trembled, but not from fear. She turned to him, her voice raw. "You fought for me." "I told you I would," he said, breathless. She stepped closer. "I was ready to die. I thought that was the only way to stop them." "Not anymore," Ethan said. "Now we stop them together." Outside, the dropship remained in the distance, but the soldiers were gone, for now. Inside, they stood surrounded by broken walls, broken weapons, and broken memories. But something else stood too. Hope. Silence after the battle was strange. Ethan and Vetra stood in the ruined outpost, weapons still raised, ears still listening. Smoke drifted across the floor. The air stank of burnt wires and blood. But no more footsteps came. No more shots. For now, the fight was over. Ethan lowered, his rifle slowly. Blood ran down his arm from a cut, but he didn't care. His eyes were fixed on Vetra. She stood tall, chest rising and falling, her eyes glowing faintly from adrenaline. She looked like a warrior, but Ethan saw the truth. She was tired, not just from the battle, from years of running, hiding, hurting. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She shook her head. "Not badly." He smiled faintly. "You handled yourself like a soldier?" She looked away. "They made me one." Ethan stepped closer and placed his hand on her shoulder. "But you're free now." Before she could answer, a loud metallic roar echoed from the forest outside. Vetra's eyes went wide. "No, it's him." "Who?" Ethan asked, already reaching for more ammo. "The enhanced hunter," she said. "They made him from something worse than me. Pain doesn't stop him, he doesn't sleep, he doesn't speak, he only follows orders." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then let's break him." Vetra grabbed the old lab device from the shelf and tossed it into her bag. "We can't win this fight, Ethan, not head on." "We don't have to win," he said, "we just have to survive." The roar came again, closer. Ethan pulled out a detonator from the toolbox. "I've been saving this for defense, wired explosives buried around the hill." "Will it stop him?" she asked. "Won't kill him, but it'll slow him down." Together they moved quickly through the side hatch and out into the fading night. The stars were disappearing behind thick clouds. The dropship still sat in the distance like a predator watching its prey. From the trees, a tall figure emerged. The hunter was terrifying. Over 7 feet tall, his body was wrapped in metal plates and organic armor. One red eye glowed brightly. The other socket was empty, scarred from past wars. His arms were long and clawed. His chest was marked with the lab's symbol, burned into the flesh. Vetra froze. Her breath caught. She knew him. "Designation 47, she whispered. "They used him to punish the others who tried to escape." Ethan raised his rifle. "Let's see how he does against someone who fights back." But before Ethan could fire, the hunter lunged forward. Inhumanly fast, Ethan was thrown back. He hit the ground hard, pain shooting through his back. Vetra screamed, raising her pistol. She fired again and again, hitting the hunter in the side. He didn't flinch. The creature turned to her, but just before he reached her, boom! Ethan triggered the first explosive. Flames erupted under the hunter's feet, throwing him into the air. Metal tore. Dirt rained down. Vetra ran to Ethan and helped him up. "We have to move. He's not dead." "I wasn't planning on staying," Ethan grunted. They ran toward the second ridge where Ethan had placed the backup detonator. Behind them, the hunter rose again, body smoking, but moving. "How does he survive that?" Ethan gasped. "He doesn't feel pain," Vetra said. They erased it from him. Another roar, closer now. They reached the second trap. Vetra turned to Ethan. "Go, set it off. Not without you." "I'll distract him." Ethan grabbed her wrist. "No, we do this together." The hunter appeared again, charging toward them like a beast. Vetra raised her arms and shouted in her own language, drawing his focus. Ethan pulled the detonator, waited a heartbeat, and then, boom. This time the explosion sent the hunter flying into a tree, breaking it in half. He didn't get up. Vetra stood frozen, watching the still body. Then Ethan touched her shoulder. "He's down. For now." They ran until the forest thinned. The cold wind burned their skin. Finally, they stopped beneath an old cave where Ethan had once stored emergency gear. Inside, they lit a fire. The warmth felt strange after all that death. Vetra sat with her knees to her chest, shaking slightly. Ethan handed her water. "You, okay?" She nodded slowly. "He was the last thing I feared. And now?" She looked at him. "Now I fear nothing. Because I have you." Ethan smiled. "Then we fight the rest of them. Together." And for the first time, Vetra believed they could. The cave was cold, but it felt safer than anywhere Vetra had ever known. The fire crackled quietly. Outside, the forest was silent now. No roars, no ships, no soldiers. Just wind in the trees and stars blinking gently above. Ethan leaned against the cave wall, arms crossed, his body tired but alert. The battle with the hunter had left bruises on his back and cuts on his arms, but he was still standing. Vetra sat close to the fire, her legs pulled up to her chest, her chin resting on her knees. The glow of the flames lit her face, half shadowed, half peaceful. She watched him carefully. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was quiet in a way both of them needed. Then softly she asked, "Will they come again?" Ethan looked at the entrance of the cave. "Maybe, but not tonight. They lost too much, and we hit back harder than they expected." Vetra nodded slowly. They were sure no human would ever help me, that I'd always be alone. Ethan's voice was calm. They were wrong. She glanced down at her hands. They were still stained with dirt and blood, still marked with scars that would never fade. "You don't flinch when you look at me," she said quietly. "Because I don't see what they tried to destroy," Ethan replied. "I see what survived." She swallowed hard. "I still feel broken sometimes." "So do I," he said simply. She looked up at him. "You think I chose to live in that outpost for peace?" he said. "I was running too, from war, from what I saw, what I lost." Vetra blinked. "You were a soldier?" "Years ago. I saw what people can do when they stop caring. So I left." "You should have kept walking when I knocked," she whispered. "Maybe," he said, "but I didn't." I opened the door, and I'm glad I did. A tear slipped down her cheek, but this time she didn't hide it. She didn't look away. "I never thought I'd sit beside a fire with someone who cared if I lived or died," she whispered. Ethan walked over and sat beside her. The heat of the flames warmed both of them, but it was the nearness of the other that made their shoulders relax. He unrolled his emergency blanket and spread it on the cave floor. "It's not much," he said, "but it's softer than stone." She watched him quietly. Then in a soft voice she asked, "May I stay beside you again?" He nodded. "Always." They lay side by side on the thin blanket, shoulder to shoulder, eyes staring at the low ceiling of the cave. The fire's light danced on the rocks. Vetra spoke without looking at him. "Do you remember the first time I saw your bed?" "I remember you refused to touch it," Ethan said with a small smile. "I thought you'd never let me close, that you'd throw me out once the fear passed. You thought wrong." She turned her head slightly. "Back then, I was sure. Humans couldn't feel warmth toward something like me." He turned to face her. "And now?" "Now," she said slowly, "I feel something when I'm near you. Something I forgot existed." "What is it?" "Hope," she said. His hand moved gently toward hers. He didn't grab it, just placed his fingers near enough that she could choose. She took them. The silence returned, but this time it was full of meaning. Then Vetra whispered, "If we survive this war, if they never come back." "They won't," Ethan said. "But if they don't," she continued, "what then? What happens next for a scarred alien girl and a tired human man?" Ethan thought for a moment. Maybe we build something, he said. Not just walls or homes, but a life. She smiled, a real one, not sad, not small, a smile full of something new. You'd want me, even like this? I want you, he said. Not what they took from you, what you kept. Her heart swelled. She closed her eyes, still holding his hand. Her body was still bruised, still healing. But her soul, after so many years, was finally starting to breathe. As the fire burned low, Vetra whispered one last thing. I thought my appearance would scare you. But now, sharing this bed is the only place I feel safe. And Ethan, eyes closed beside her, whispered back, You never scared me. You saved me. And in the darkness of the cave, surrounded by danger and silence, two broken souls held on to each other, and finally, slept without fear.